we received this question on Twitter. So I'm going to say it now. We saw it earlier in the year when Felix Auger-Aliassime skipped the Davis Cup to play a 250 in France. And now Emma Raducanu is doing the same thing by taking a wild card in Korea. There used to be no higher honour than playing for your country, but that seems to have changed. Do you think it's okay, or would you like to see more top players commit to playing Billie Jean King Cup and Davis Cup? Ooh, big question, Chris. Playing for yourself versus playing for your country. The debate is on and very relevant because Emma Raducanu is taking a wild card into Korea. I wonder what Ann Kyofavong thinks about that. But yeah, where do you stand on the kind of on the debate?
I was pretty brutal in my assessment of what I thought of Felix skipping it. And a lot of our listeners defended him, saying he's actually won it for his team. He's also won, I believe, the United Cup for his team, and he's won a mixed doubles bronze medal. I do think the nature of the game is when it comes to Davis Cup is you should make yourself available unless you are a top player who has just won, the Australian Open and needs to recover from that and isn't fit for it. I think that makes perfect sense. We've seen, Jack Draper had to sit out for it as well. Alcaraz has just won the US Open. And I do think there is a part of it is you can't do everything in a season if you're at the top of the top. So I have some sympathy for those top players. I also do understand that ranking points are important. With Felix, it was less of a crime in my mind because, ultimately it was not the finals. Emma has skipped the finals whilst being the British number one. And I think there's not enough real media attention around that because it's clear that Emma plays for Emma and doesn't really care about what anyone else thinks, which I think is a reason why a lot of people like her, but also a reason why a lot of people dislike her because this is purely self-interested. She's not doing it for the money. She said she doesn't play for the money. She's doing it for the ranking points and because she thinks there's a really good chance for her to go up the rankings in Asia. So I don't like it. I think, especially if you're in the finals, you do need your top players there. And she didn't have a particularly deep run at the US Open, so she should be fresh. She should be prepared. It is in Asia, so it's just skipping one tournament. So for me, I'm probably with Ann Kyofathong, who I haven't heard what she said about it, but I'm sure she's been tight-lipped but made her point. It's not good.
Yeah, on Raducanu, I don't like it, but I do think it's smart because there's going to be a lot of top players playing in Shenzhen. And whilst that is going on, there is a 500 event in Korea. And yes, Iga Swiatek is the top seed, but certainly, the way the tournament is going and gravitating towards these more glitzy tournaments that are, have more ranking points available, like 500s, the 2-week 1000s. I think, there's an opportunity there to kind of focus on some of these maybe weaker 500 events to secure more ranking points, maybe at times where players have interests elsewhere. You can't do it all. And yeah, I don't think everyone is going to be taking the same, point of view. So I would say I don't like it as a GB fan perspective, but sadly I do understand it. It'll just be interesting, I think, if this were like a qualifier and that team went through to the finals, and that player who hadn't played, would they want to be back in, for example, or, that reintegration? I think, it could cause, friction and, it could be quite it could change can change and upset the dynamics possibly.
Is it better if someone says, like I think Federer said before, and some players have said, I'm not playing this year, I'm sitting a year out?
Yeah.
Does that make it better than like a last minute pull out to play a tournament?
Yeah, I think so. I think, if there are private conversations that are being had in terms of, look, I, as an individual, just want to focus on my game this year, therefore I'm not going to play, then I think that's a better situation than deciding last minute, to take a wild card.
Leaving your team high and dry last minute,
exactly.
Like the GB team is quite a lot weakened by that in terms of the combinations that they have, and really needing to get those singles wins. We've got some great players, but I do think there is like a responsibility there. And what would it be like now when Emma does come back to the team? If she does, that's one thing I would say. But having said that, I mean, I think Emma's going to do what Emma's going to do. She skipped the Olympics. She wasn't interested in that either, and that obviously is playing for your country. So,
do you think she set a dangerous precedent? Because the fact she's skipping the finals, it's almost like, well, she's not going to play the finals. Why would she play? Why would we expect her to play a qualifier?
Well, when she did play against France, she was struggling for form and struggling for matches on clay at the time. And then she did actually win some matches there and played some good tennis. And I think it was good for her. But I do think she probably still got more out of that than kind of everyone else did, because then she obviously then didn't really play much more of the clay swing that year. So it can be good if you're looking for wins and wins against top players. It's tough because you're not going to.
Also, the home factor as well, like, inspiring. You're inspiring the crowd at home. If it is a home tie, you do want players like Raducanu who are going to be able to drum up interest. In the sport in ways that other players might not be able to.
You have to still welcome them back because they're so good and they are the top players in the team. It is a big shame, I think, that you do see some of these players pulling out. We should also say that Osaka pulled out, but she did have a deep run at the US Open. Keys has pulled out from the US team, and I think she's been replaced by another singles player. So there are other players who are doing it, so we shouldn't just say it's just Emma doing this. But obviously Osaka would be their number one. So it's similar in that sort of vein, but you can also see that a deep run at the US Open might also change a schedule.
Yeah, it definitely feels more acute with nations who maybe don't have the depths of a nation like the United States, and perhaps actually the fact that they've got so many top players in the United States, it actually is a detriment to them, because maybe a lot of the players might be thinking, "Oh,
don't need me.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I don't play. You've got all these other
JPEG
great
will be
players."
there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely more acute, I think, for some nations like GB. Having said that, though, I mean, Bolter and Cartal have been playing very good tennis this season. It's perhaps not as dramatic as perhaps it was
Ian Coventry,
a long time ago. A long time ago with like Tim Henman, and even like some stages with Andy Murray at the very start of when GB were in Davis Cup in the real doldrums, like levels and levels below.
But we're not a one-player nation anymore. I think that's what's good on both sides for our side, and that's very much true for the US as well. Without Coco Gauff, two of their slam champions this year, they still are at great strength and have a really good chance of winning the title. So it doesn't mean it's all doom and gloom, but it is a decision that I think splits people, and I think a lot of people won't like it. A lot of people understand it. And I think for players who are in that mid-ranking, maybe where Raducanu is now, it's probably at its most tempting to pick up the ranking points when she's on a positive rankings trajectory at the moment.
Yeah, listeners, let us know, where do you stand on the debate of players playing for their nation versus playing for themselves?